Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the uh, Crown Jewel review for the 21st of October, 2021. Um, Hotter crowd than usual for a WWF event or WWE event. And overall, not a bad show. Anyway, pre-show SmackDown Tag Champs the Usos will face Benjamin and Alexander, which kicks us off non-title match. And so Kevin Patrick asks Paul Heyman backstage if they went over the Crown Jewel contract with Brock Lesnar. Heyman deflects and says he'd enter the ring with Roman Reigns and would leave with the Universal Champion. It wasn't, you know, that direct, but that was the main idea here. Usos defeat the Hurt Business, Shelton Benjamin, and Cedric Alexander. Not a bad match. Shorter than could have been. The Hurt Business are in control for the majority of the match, I'd even say. Probably 80-90% of it somewhere in there. And the last few minutes of the match are, obviously the go around. Hurt Business gets the heat early, isolates Jay from Jimmy, and Alexander and Benjamin work over the arm, and then they fight to the corner. But then immediately there's a takedown. Jay makes a hot tag to Jimmy. Alexander regains control after Benjamin hits a knee to Jimmy in the ropes. Jay then breaks a pinfall attempt by Benjamin, and everybody enters the ring. Benjamin hits the pay dirt on Jimmy for near fall. Usos hit a bunch of super kicks. Then Jay connects with a splash on Alexander, pinning him for the win. Edge defeats Seth Rollins Hell in a Cell match. This was really decent. Seth Rollins and Edge have a interesting chemistry. Story of the feud isn't really that compelling, but the matches as standalone pieces of professional wrestling are. Blow off match to end the feud. It should be here. Edge takes Rollins in the corner. Rollins nails a springboard knee, and Edge goes to the floor. Edge then throws him into the cage and into the steps as well. Edge brings in a couple of chairs and hits an execution DDT for near fall. Edge takes off piece of the chair and goes to the crossface. Rollins then grabs the pieces away from Edge, but Edge is able to get out of Rollins' hands. Rollins then gains control and throws Edge around the cell. He then goes for weapons under the ring, but Edge comes back with a baseball slide. Seth takes control over and sets up a concerto. Edge locks on a crossface for the second time. Seth crawls over and grabs a piece of the chair and starts stabbing Edge in the eye with it, or trying around the eye. And then Rollins hits a frog splash for a near fall. Rollins introduces Table into the contest and then nails the kill switch for a near fall. Interesting that they're always going to big moves for the near fall and telling a really decent story here. Rollins goes for something off the top, but Edge shoves him off, interrupting that idea, and he bounces off the cage and falls through the table. Rollins then brings in the steel steps, but Edge cuts Rollins off with the Edge-O-Matic. Edge flies off the top rope with the chair, sends him crashing into Rollins' midsection. Edge then goes for the spear, but Rollins hits a super kick and then a pedigree for a near fall. Edge then hits a buckle bomb and then a spear, but Rollins kicks out. Edge then brings in a table, but also finds a ladder. Edge then goes in to whip Rollins into the ladder, but Rollins reverses and sends Edge into the ladder as well. Edge then goes for a suplex, but Rollins cuts him off and connects with a sunset flip off the ladder and through the table for another near fall. Rollins then goes looking for weapons as Edge gets back to his feet. Rollins then hits multiple super kicks and comes across a chain and uses that around his foot. Edge escapes using a chair to low Rollins. Edge uses a chain to choke Rollins and then uses a wrench for a crossface. Edge gets up after all of this, and Edge stops to get up. He grabs the chair, places it under Rollins' head, and hits a curve stomp, pinning him. And the crowd cheers, pyro goes off, and everybody is happy. The popcorn match of the moment, Mansoor defeats Mustafa Ali. And crowd is into Mansoor because of his connection to the Eastern cultures. Their trade offense, Mansoor hits a moonsault and drop kick and then sends Ali to the floor. Ali comes back in but gets hit with a couple drops and then gets sent back to the floor. Ali gains control after using the ring apron to trip Mansoor and then goes on the apron. Back in the ring, Ali uses a camel clutch on Mansoor in the middle of the ring. Mansoor powered out, but Ali connected with a tornado DDT. Mansoor then starts to make a comeback, but Ali begs off, and Mansoor ignores him, hits a big lariat, and sends him out of the ring. Mansoor then goes for a dive, but Ali hit a drop kick, and then he misses a 450 splash in ring. As Mansoor connected with a moonsault, Ali locked his leg over Mansoor's neck for a attempted submission, but there was a rope break. Ali then goes for another 450, but Mansoor goes onto the apron. He then lands a springboard neck breaker and pins Ali. Ali then jumps Mansoor. Post-match, and mystery guy comes along and gets in the ring. He reveals himself to be Tank Handy, and he is a silver medalist in Taekwondo. Tries to get him out of the ring, but Handy instead knocks him out. And Natalya, Titus O'Neil, and a bunch of other individuals that are breast cancer survivors are introduced. They promote the Breast Cancer Association, and I mean, this is where it's at. And then RK Bro, Riddle, and Orton defeat AJ Styles and Omos to retain the Raw Tag Team Championships. This is okay, but nothing to write home about. Obviously, Omos still too green to be in the position they have him in, but they don't seem to care. Orton and Riddle make their entrance. Riddle leaves. He confuses Orton, and he is riding a camel to the ring. Riddle returns riding a camel to the ring. Orton and Riddle stay in control. Orton then goes for the RKO, but AJ escapes. AJ tags in Omos and quickly cuts off Riddle. Orton then tags in, but Omos then takes him down and does some rather big guy spots, including walking over Orton before tagging Styles back in briefly before Omos comes in and applies the claw to the shoulder. Riddle and Styles come back in, and they're going through many motions, and Styles hits Riddle with a Pele kick, but Riddle soon connects with a knee. Orton then shoves Styles into Omos, but Omos recovers. Riddle then grabs Omos' knee and takes him to the floor, and Styles goes for the phenomenal forearm. Orton cuts him off, RKO, and then Riddle lands the floating bro for the win. Kevin Patrick interviews Becky Lynch, and she says tonight's her night to remind people who she is and was. Zelina Vega defeats Doudrop to win the Queen's Cup tournament. Not much really to get into here. Was it bad? Wasn't good. 6-minute match. Vega then gets in the face of Doudrop from the beginning. tries to get a dive, counter with sunset flip, but Dewdrop cuts her off, lands an elbow. She goes for something off the top, but Vega cuts her off and hits a tornado DDT for near fall. Vega then locks in the Dragon Sleeper, but Dewdrop then gets back to her feet and connects with a clothesline. Dewdrop then goes for a cannonball. Vega dodges that and connects with a codebreaker. Dewdrop comes back with a side slam. Dewdrop follows up with a senton but misses a splash. Vega comes back with a code red for the win. After she wins, she goes to the throne and basically proclaims all, hail Queen Zelina. They show footage of other sports, and then Goldberg defeats Bobby Lashley. Good for what it was. It wasn't great. Shorter matches are better for Goldberg at this point at 54, 55 years old. But anyway, Lashley reveals that he's brought a chain to the ring. He immediately uses it to gain control of the match and spends a good bit of time working over the knee of Goldberg, going for chop blocks and other submission-style maneuvers. Lashley wraps Goldberg's legs around the chair and stomps. Goldberg crawls near the table and then is propped up in the corner. Lashley then goes for spear, but Goldberg dodges in. Lashley runs into the table. Goldberg hits a spear and then works him over with a jackhammer, but instead of the pin, Goldberg essentially gets up and lets Lashley recover. Goldberg then hits a spear that sends Lashley through the barricade on the outside, and then he takes Lashley, puts him over the steel steps, and goes to use part of the steps. Lashley escapes at the last minute. Lashley then starts to leave. Goldberg stalks him. Hurt Business then arrive and bring kendo sticks. Goldberg takes care of the Hurt Business and grabs a kendo stick. Goldberg lays out Lashley with a kendo stick. Goldberg then spears him off the stage and into the platform below, pinning him, and Lashley does walk away on his own powers. Survivor Series commercials air, and anyway, Xavier Woods defeats Finn Balor to win the King of the Ring tournament. Fast-paced match. Xavier Woods winning is a bit of a surprise. Both guys go back and forth early. Woods starts to build momentum, sending Balor into the ropes and then connecting with a drop kick. Balor then counters with a tornado DDT and hits a double foot stomp for his trouble. Balor hits a sling blade. Woods connects with a super kick for a near fall. Balor then hammers Woods with with a bunch of elbow strikes. Woods then follows up with a roll up for a near fall. Balor then kicks Woods and goes to the top rope, but Woods meets him with a superplex. Woods follows up with a springboard elbow, but Balor continues and hits a switchblade and goes for the coup de grace. Woods escapes and rolls up Balor again for the near fall, and Woods hits a enziguri and a gutbuster for another near fall. Woods hits a springboard elbow to win the King of the Ring tournament. Decent match anyway. Big E defeats Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Better match than it had right to be. Crowd is into it. Probably the hottest match just from a singles perspective on the show. McIntyre starts off with an advantage early. Goes right after Big E's shoulder, and McIntyre rolls into the ring. Big E goes after him, but McIntyre hits a belly-to-belly suplex on the floor, and then follows up with a spinebuster back in ring. Big E fights back with some suplexes, but McIntyre fires back with some of his own, and also hits reverse cutter. Big E then countered the Future Shock DDT with another belly to belly suplex. Big E goes for the big ending, but McIntyre fights back, hitting a Michinoku driver for a near fall. Big E then hits a Uranagi, but Drew counted a Future Shock DDT that connected. McIntyre goes for a Claymore, but Big E countered with a powerbomb, then locks in a stretch muffler. McIntyre escapes, but walked into a big ending for a 2 count, and then goes for a big ending off the top rope. But McIntyre countered with a bulldog off the top for a near fall, and then they avoid another Claymore. Big E, in fact, walked into a Claymore kick, and then there's another series of near falls there. McIntyre goes for the big ending, but Big E countered and hit a second big ending of his own. There's a Star rally in the Indian nation. Stand up to bullying kids in a very bully-related government-laden area. Anyway, so Becky Lynch defeats Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair to retain the women's championship. Decent match. Anyway, so Belair is taken out of the match early. Lynch and Banks go back and forth with each other. Bianca comes back in and hits a torture backbreaker on Banks, but Lynch hits a missile dropkick and then sends both to the floor. Lynch then hits an exploder on Banks and continues to work on both. And Lynch gets caught by both Banks and Belair. Teamed together and buckle bomb Lynch into the ring post. Banks and Belair then competed with Banks hitting Three Amigos. Lynch then comes back and out for Banks, and then Belair hits a big delayed vertical suplex, sending Lynch crashing into the mat. Lynch and Banks somehow teamed up to take Belair out with a double bank statement and disarmor. Decent ladies match here. Banks has Lynch locked in with the bank statement as Belair crashes into them with a springboard. Covering both for the near fall, Lynch breaks up the pin attempt by Belair and hits the manhandle slam on Banks, but Belair breaks up the pin. Lynch then goes for the manhandle slam on Belair, but Belair makes it to the apron. Banks then takes Belair to the floor, and they both wrestle for control. Lynch then takes out both and puts Belair on the back of the ring. Lynch then goes for a disarmor and then puts Banks in it and tries to break up Belair, but powered out, and then Belair hits the KOD on Lynch, but Banks and Belair fight out and figure out who would pin Lynch. Banks enters the ring. Lynch rolls up Banks and holds the ropes to retain the titles. Announcers push that the Raw Women's Championship and SmackDown and vice versa. I don't think anyone cares where the championships are. Anyway, so Roman Reigns defeats Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. I don't think this is the best option for the championships, but it is what it is. Match was fine for a while. Strikes early. Lesnar goes for the German suplex. Reigns grabs the turnbuckle. Lesnar then gets in, and after a second attempt, Lesnar took Reigns to the outside, but Reigns then throws him into the ring post. Reigns then enters the ring and then lays out Lesnar with a Superman punch. Then Lesnar attempts to re-enter the ring. Reigns then hits a giant Plunger jump over the top rope, and Reigns hits a spear. Lesnar kicks out of the near fall. Lesnar hits another Reigns hits another Superman punch, and then a third. Lesnar leapfrogs Reigns as Reigns goes for a spear attempt and crashes into the turnbuckle. Lesnar comes back with a German suplex and then another. Lesnar then goes for the F5 and connecting with it, but Reigns kicks out. Lesnar goes for the second F5, but Lesnar countered with a guillotine. Lesnar then fights out of the guillotine, hitting a spinebuster. Lesnar goes for another F5, but the referee's too close and gets laid out. Lesnar covers for a visual pin, but obviously the referee isn't awake for this. Heyman then holds up the Universal title, unsure of what to do. He throws the title belt into the ring. In between both Lesnar and Reigns, Lesnar grabs the belt, but walks into super kicks from the Usos, and then Reigns then used the title belt, and second referee comes in, counts the win. I mean, not a bad match, and I guess they're going to do a story off of it, but I really wonder about who they're building for the future of this brand. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this.